It's 11:19 p.m., and the air over Columbus feels wrong, like the sky is pressing its weight on the roof of this squat brick building and asking it to crack. The thermometer on the wall says 68, but it's a heavy 68, sticky, with a taste like wet metal on the tongue. The air vents make a thin rattle, even though the big system is dead, and what little fan I have is just pushing warm breath in a slow loop. The neighborhood is quiet in a way that isn't real silence, because the old sounds are gone. No leaf blowers, no freeway hum from I-70, no planes, no soft whine of a phone charging on a kitchen counter, nothing with bite or buzz. It's as if the world took a deep breath at dinner and never let it out. You're on 97.4 FM. My name is James Tanner. I'm in a studio in Franklinton with tape over the windows and a diesel generator coughing a beat in the alley like a smoker in winter. There's a stack of fuel cans under a tarp and a cable run through a vent that I sealed with towels and prayer. The on-air light doesn't work unless I hit it with the side of my hand. When it flickers, it paints the room red for a second, and the dust shows up like ash. I can see my breath even though it isn't that cold. But maybe it's just the way I'm breathing, slow and shallow, while I listen for things I don't want to hear. 2 days ago, people still argued about whether anything would hit. I remember the last normal moment I let myself believe. A bite of cold pizza in the parking lot, when the sun was honest and the sky wore that deep blue you get after a storm, pulls all the bad stuff north. Someone on the morning show made a joke about dinosaurs, and we laughed the way you laugh when you know the punchline can't hurt you. Then the phones lit up with something that wasn't laughter at all. First, it was the flash. Not here, not over our heads, but out east, out past the arc where the land gives up to the ocean. People in Newark and Asbury Park said the horizon went white like someone snapped a weld on the edge of the world. In Philly, the windows ticked. In Brooklyn, it sounded like the subway was climbing into the street. Our board froze at 10:03 a.m. on the dot. The clock that lives off the line started lying to me. The screens went black all at once, like they had made a plan behind my back. The manager shouted from the hall to stay put. Someone in sales cried in the bathroom where the fan was still spinning. I heard a bang that I thought was a truck losing a load, but there was no truck. Just a low roll that kept rolling, not thunder, not anything I had words for. A belly sound that arrived before your brain says you're in danger. People outside stopped moving, while their cars decided they weren't cars anymore. I watched a man in a white Civic drift to the curb without touching the wheel, then sit there with his hands flat on the glass like he wanted to push the day back into place. Every light in the lot turned yellow at once, and then dead. I pressed my phone and pressed it again, and then pressed my thumb into it like I could force it to wake. It gave me a sad little glow, and then the battery symbol with a line through it, which shouldn't happen. But it did. The radio boards here went dark too, but the old rack in the closet made a hopeful click, like a dog who knows the sound of your keys. There is a reason you keep old things around. A reason you don't throw away the manual switch when the touchscreen makes you feel clever. Down the stairs, we keep a backup transmitter, meant for storm days and football nights at the fairgrounds. It's ugly, and it smells like dust in summer, but it doesn't care about software. It takes a crank and a start button and some patience. I ran. I tripped on the third stair because I never lift my toes like I should. I bled a little on my shin, and I started that beast while the main building wheezed. When it caught, the sound was the best sound of my life. It made the walls hum like a bass string, and I knew I could talk to somebody, even if I didn't know who or for how long. What happened is this. as far as I can tell, and as far as people who used to have business cards can still explain it. A rock the size of a sports arena came in hot and wrong and hit the Atlantic somewhere east of New Jersey. Not right on the coast, but not far enough out to make the land feel safe. It hit at a shallow angle, I'm told, which is like skipping a stone if the stone is on fire, and the pond is the skin of the world. It threw water into the sky in a way our grandfathers never learned to describe. It turned the water into steam and glass dust and lightning. It kicked a wave that didn't behave like old waves, and it sent a pulse through the wires in the air and the thin bones of the grid. That pulse chewed through circuits like a mouth full of nails. Bridges are fine because bridges are steel and stone, but the things that sit on top of bridges and tell you where you are all died at once. The power companies knew something like this could happen, but not like this. Not everywhere at the same time. Not with transformers popping like corn in a pan from Maine to the Carolinas, and then like a second thought across Ohio and Michigan and into the plains. Out west, they're better off by distance and luck. But the east turned dim and then dark in a heartbeat, and planes got confused and sat down where they could. Some made it to big runways. Some did not. We've heard things. We will not speak them until we know them. I called an old friend who never forgave the sky for being bigger than his telescope. He's a retired professor from Ohio State who lives in a small brick house on North Star Road with an orange extension cord stapled to the ceiling of his garage because he never learned to want things neat. He built a Faraday box out of ammo cans and copper mesh and the stubborn need to be right. He kept a shortwave rig in there, and when the flash went off, he says he saw the light behind his eyelids, and he smelled hot plastic, even though everything in his world was turned off. He was not surprised. He was not calm either, but he had that careful tone he used when he had bad news and didn't want you to break. He said the main body hit the ocean. He said the shock front travels faster through water and ground than our brains want to think about. And he said a secondary rain is likely, smaller pieces burning down through the thick air now that the big one punched a path. He said the ocean is a cruel mirror. It can take a punch and give it back as vapor and heat and gusts that strip paint off boats 100 miles away. He said the first wave would be wrong-shaped, and that bays and river mouths would push it like fingers into places where the maps never showed blue before. Then his set went quiet for a long minute and came back with breathing. He said the aurora would come this far south for a night or two, even with the clouds, and that if I saw green light in a place where only planes used to move, I should not call it pretty. He said, find a way to keep talking, because the wires are going to tease us, off and on, like a dying flashlight. And people who hear a human voice will make better choices than people who hear nothing at all. From the roof, before I taped it shut, I could see the plume. It's not one thing but a whole mess braided together, white and gray, and a color I don't have a word for. Something like steel that has decided to become smoke. It stretches low across the east, and it grows fast, and it carries its own lightning, thin, silent strikes that slide sideways. The birds noticed first. They bunched up in wild shapes, and then dropped into trees and tried not to move. Later, when the light should have been good, and the city should have been warm and annoying and alive, the light came through like it had been filtered through milk. The afternoon never got to afternoon. It stayed like morning that couldn't find its shoes. The sun went down early and wrong, and the temperature fell like someone opened a door to a walk-in freezer that sits underground. There is grit in the air now. It isn't ash because ash floats, and then it's in your hair and on your tongue. This stuff is heavier. It settles in corners, a fine gray sugar, and when you touch it, it gives a tiny squeak, like a shoe on a gym floor. You can smell salt from 1,000 miles away. It's in the grit. It's in the way your lips crack no matter how much water you drink. The first hours after the hit smelled like panic. Sirens started, then cut off, then started again, then fell into a slow wail as batteries dimmed. People did what people do when the line breaks between knowing and guessing. Some ran for schools because schools feel sturdy. Some lined up outside supermarkets and stood with their eyes fixed on nothing because the doors beeped open and closed and then stayed shut. The clerk at the corner store propped his door with a case of paper towels and let everyone in until the paper towels fell over and a cart caught in the frame. People who never looked each other in the eye started talking in quick little bursts with their hands. A bus stopped at the worst place to stop, halfway through an intersection, and everyone got off without swearing because it wasn't the driver's fault. A woman with a stroller smacked her hand flat on the plastic cover every time grit landed on it, as if hitting it could keep the baby from breathing the day. I saw a man in a suit tear his tie in two like he had skinned a snake and use it to bind a gash on someone else's hand, tight enough to stop the bright bleed that looks like a faucet when the heart is scared. We have good in us, and it shows easiest when we don't have time to think about it. Around noon, the internet died for good. It tried to come back, a few small gasps, and then the screens gave up the way eyes do when sleep wins. Cell towers blinked out like a string of cheap lights down Broad Street. Then a few came back with weak bars that lied when you touched them. Then none. Landlines gave us a good hour, a long, warm echo. Then they went quiet, and you could hear air where voices used to live. The TV stations did their best with what they had, but the cables that carry them are delicate and sullen, and they don't like to be handled rough. One channel showed the mayor for 9 seconds with a mic that wasn't turned on, his mouth moving careful and slow, a little white at the edge of his lips, then back to the emergency slide that said, "Stay calm," in a font that never calms anyone. By late afternoon, the only thing that was still true was the old thing you can't kill with a mouse click. AM and FM still worked if someone like me could drag them onto their feet, which is why I am here, elbow deep in knotted cords, telling you how the sky feels like it wants to rest its chin on our houses. By evening, we started to hear second-hand things about the coast. A cousin's friend in Tom's River said the river forgot which way to run for an hour, and the docks pulled their nails free and turned into teeth. Someone in South Amboy saw the old tank farm spit fire into the bay. The Verrazzano took the wind like a sail, and then held like it always does, because it was built by people who knew wind and water are patient liars. In Manhattan, the lower streets filled with brackish soup, and then emptied into dark holes where the subways thought they owned the night. People climbed. People carried dogs and kids in bags that looked too heavy, and they did not scream unless they had to. In Atlantic City, a casino lost its glass front like a mouth losing teeth. In Cape May, the bay came quiet, and then loud, and then quiet again, the way a drunk man comes and goes from a party he wasn't invited to. If you are from those places, and you are hearing me from a dark kitchen in the middle of Ohio, I am not telling you this to scare you. I am telling you so you know that someone named James is holding your name in his mouth and saying it soft because names deserve to be kept, even when the wires fail. We have a list of things that do not work, and a shorter list of things that do. Power is out across most of the city. Pockets glow for a few hours when a substation catches its breath. Then they go dark again, like they remember they should be dead. The water plants have backup, but those run on fuel, and fuel needs trucks, and trucks need roads that are not full of cars with their hoods up and their drivers staring at their own hands like the answers live there. Some pumps will keep pushing a while. Some have already slowed. You can fill a tub with what still runs. You can put lids on pots and tell your kids it's a game. You can set buckets outside and collect what the sky is dropping. But do not drink it without making it safe, because this grit is not the grit you knew, and it can carry things that don't love you. Boil what you can. If you can't boil, filter through a tight shirt, and then bleach it with the good stuff. 8 drops per gallon if the bleach says 8%. A little more if it's older and lazy. Let it sit. It will smell like a pool you hated as a kid. That is better than the kind of sick we can't treat today. Hospitals are open as ideas more than buildings. The big ones in the city have generators and people who don't know how to quit. But the traffic lights that help ambulances cut through are dead. And the elevators are stuttering. And the machines that make breath for people who need help will run until the diesel runs out. If you are hurt bad, you go anyway, because people in scrubs are still doing the hardest work in the world with flashlights held in teeth. If you are not hurt bad, you don't go there to ask questions because your questions are heavy, and they pull doctors off people who are bleeding. The pharmacies were order for a day, and then not. Some people took things they did not need and left the things they did. If you have medicine, you can share in a way that doesn't put you in danger. There are churches and schools that are building tables and writing lists and doing what they have always done between storms. Put your name down. Don't promise what you don't have. Be sure the person taking the list looks like they get sleep sometimes, because there's a kind of tired that turns even good lists into lies. The people who always talk for the government have not said much since morning. This isn't a judgment. I think their lines are as dead as ours. We heard one solid thing on a battery set from a tower near Cincinnati. It said stay off the highways heading east. It said bridges will be inspected before use. It said, do not go to the airport unless you were told to, and you cannot be made to stay away, because the long lines of people with rolling bags are the saddest lines in the world, and there are no planes to love them. It said a second rain of fragments could come from the west or from above in any direction, because when the big thing breaks, the small things don't check with each other before they fall. It said, if you see a flash, you do not run to the window. You drop and cover your eyes with your arms the way you were taught, and then forgot because you grew up and thought drills were a joke. It said, and this part felt like someone read it twice before they said it out loud, do not look for waves where there are no oceans. We smiled at that, and then we did not, because rivers can make waves that like to pretend they are oceans when the moon and a falling mountain argue about who is in charge. So if you live near the Scioto or the Olentangy or the Big Darby, you sleep light and you listen for a sound like a train that isn't a train anymore. I will tell you how to get through tonight in a way that gives tomorrow a fair shot. Fill water while there is pressure. Eat cold things now, and save the things that need heat for when you can make heat. Find your neighbors like you did when you lost your dog last spring. Knock gentle. Don't stand in the door and make them choose between fear and trust. Offer one thing you have two of. Ask for one thing you need. Make a paper list of who has what, and who needs what, and who is alone. Old houses stay warmer than new ones if you do the old tricks. Blankets hung over doors to trap the room you can keep. Towels at the base of doors and windows that leak air. foil behind candles to push light into the room if you must use candles at all. Keep a bucket of water near any flame because fire is greedy and stupid, and it loves days like this. Vent anything that burns, and if you can't, don't burn it. The line between warm and dead is thin when exhaust decides it wants to live in your lungs. If you have a car that still runs, you are one of the few. Some old pickups are fine because they don't have more brain than a toaster. Some cars with new parts died like they were told to. If yours still starts, don't run it in a closed garage, and don't play your radio on it all night, because gas is money now, and soon it will be more than money. If you have a radio, put it on a real antenna. Even a piece of wire out the window will help. We broadcast low because our main gear is off, but if you can hear me, you are part of a circle I can't see. At the top of each hour, I'll speak for 10 minutes, and then I'll save the fuel and let the quiet do its work. I'll keep time with a wind-up watch an old engineer left in a drawer the day he retired. He told me it gained 4 seconds a day, and he was right. And I am grateful he was the kind of man who noticed. I want to tell you about the first thing that made me think this was not a freak accident, but the start of a long season. It was small. It was a sound from outside, a whine like you hear when a TV is on in the next room, but the TV was dead, and the next room was the alley. I looked through a gap in the tape and saw the streetlights trying to be stars. They flickered in a pattern, not random, a stuttering wave from east to west, as if something moved underneath them. A second later, the air smelled like pennies and hot grass. The engineer in my head said electromagnetic something, and the child in my head said the sky is chewing. Then the generator stumbled, coughed, caught, stumbled again. The light above the console wrote its own Morse code across my hands. If this was one pulse from one hit, we'd breathe and count and move on. But it kept coming in little sets, like aftershocks, like echoes in the wires. That means debris. That means a field of scrap falling in. That means days of weirdness. Maybe weeks. Maybe more. Not a single moment, but a chapter. There are theories. My friend on North Star, I'll call him Ken because that's his name, and he would laugh at me for pretending otherwise, says we did not see this late because no one was looking. He says we saw it late because it came from a blind spot, a slice of space hidden behind the glare of the sun. Our big eyes up there can't look too close to the sun without cooking, and this thing came in from that hard angle during a time when we were busy with other fires. He says the minor bodies up there don't care about our calendars. He says a shallow impact over water is the nightmare configuration, because it doesn't give you a nice crater to draw circles around and measure. It gives you vapor and heat and a chain of falling glass that keeps turning the sky into a weapon miles and miles away. He says the first day is the worst for surprise, and the 5th day is the worst for decisions, because that is when hope and fear tie at the waist and run opposite ways. He says the grid can come back if the right people with the right parts are allowed to work where they need to work. He says the right people are already trying, and the parts are not in the right place, and the roads are choking, so we will be learning patience, whether we want to or not. In the middle of all this, the city shows us what it was built on. Not just concrete and pipes, but the other stuff that's harder to break. On my way here after the first flash, I watched a guy with a key ring the size of a fist open the door to a senior building that had locked itself out of habit. He shouted up the stairwell that anyone who needed help coming down could have his arm. He spent 2 hours doing stairs with strangers, and he never checked his watch once because it wasn't working and because he was where he needed to be. On Town Street, someone chalked a map on the pavement that pointed to a house with soup, and a house with water, and a house where someone with a nurse's mind and a cool hand could look at the cut on your head and tell you if your skull was still your skull. A bike shop dragged pumps into the alley and lined up wheels, and kids you'd cross the street to avoid on a normal day stood there patching tubes for free, because it felt good to fix a circle when everything else was broken lines. A woman with gray hair and a bun sat on a plastic chair and showed 3 teenagers how to make a filter from gravel and cloth and a soda bottle, and they listened like it was magic because it was. Old knowledge has been hiding in our houses for years, waiting for the power to go out so it can have the room again. I will not pretend this is all noble. People took things. People shoved. 2 men fought in front of a drawer full of batteries like the drawer was the last door before heaven. A man in a lifted truck tried to push his way through a line of cars, and when his engine died in the middle of his tantrum, he sat very still and cried. Fear is a loud tool. But even in those sharp corners, I saw softer edges. The man with the lifted truck helped push 3 other cars out of the intersection because it gave his hands a job, and that kept his mind from breaking. The men who fought over batteries found enough to divide, and then passed the drawer down the line, because a child with a lamp behind them changes how a line behaves. We are messy, and we are better than our mess more often than we get credit for. Here is what I am doing in this room, and what you can do in yours. I keep the generator on a schedule because diesel is loud and the night outside is listening. I run it at the top of the hour for the broadcast, and for long enough to charge a few things that matter. I turn it off, and I sit still with my back against the rack, and I let the building tell me if anyone is learning how to climb it. I drink small sips. I write names. Today, I wrote down a list of neighborhood streets and who I saw still in their houses, lights or no lights, cars in the drive or not, doors open or closed. I slipped the list under a brick at the corner where a few people will find it and add notes. If you can do your own version of that, it makes a web that does not need wires. On each paper, write the time like you are leaving notes for your other self. It helps. It turns the day into something you can hold by the edges. If you are listening from outside the city, from a farm in Pickaway, or a village up near Delaware, or from a truck stop off 23 that got smart and turned itself into a camp, you have different tools and different problems. Your lights are the stars, and the dark between them is bigger. Your quiet is older. You can hear a change in the wind 2 fields over. Trust that. If the air smells like the ocean, even this far inland, keep your animals close and your barns open at the far end so air can run through. If fine grit collects on your steps, sweep it into a pile and cover it if you have kids who put everything in their mouths. Wear a mask if you have one, not because it is fashionable now, but because the dust today is not like the dust from the fairgrounds in August. It is groundstone and salt and metal, and we do not care for it inside us. If your well has power, use it while you can. If not, find the hand pump someone kept for decoration and make it useful again. There is a man on Goodale who sells old tools and old pumps, and he will trade for food now. He told me he feels like the world finally remembered his shop exists. I told him I was happy for him and sad for us, and he nodded like a man who knows 2 things can be true at the same time. I keep thinking about the quiet. It's not real, like I said, but it plays the part. Without the constant thread of machines, you can hear smaller things. A dog printing its nails on the sidewalk, the way a tree talks to itself when the wind leans in, your own breath when you realize you've been holding it. In this quiet, words carry farther and choices do too. If you're angry, your anger moves through your house and into your neighbors, and then into the dark where it grows teeth. If you're patient, your patience does the same. Tonight is the kind of night that will be remembered. Tomorrow, people will say you were kind or you were not, and the story will live longer than the outage. There is a rumor about a second strike. It's the kind of rumor that grows when people see streaks in the sky that could be anything. My friend Ken says fragments are real, but the big map is still the big map. The Atlantic took the worst of it first. The rest is noise with sharp edges. That does not mean we can relax. It means we don't have to wait for a perfect wave to keep us scared. We have enough work right here, right now. If you have family on the coast, write their names down and the last thing you know about them, and put the paper somewhere you can touch it. It will help when the lines come back in stutters, and you have to tell the story again. If you are on a coast and you are hearing this by miracle or by bounce off the high layers that still hold charge, I am holding your names for you. I keep a small battery radio next to the board. When I kill the generator, I turn the gain down and the volume up, and I listen to other ghosts like me. Louisville has a voice tonight, slow and deep, telling people how to set a siphon without losing diesel with each failure. Somewhere near Dayton, a man is reading the same list of Red Cross rules we used for tornadoes, and they still work because people still get cut, and people still get scared, and the best answers are old. A woman in Detroit is calm in a way that makes you want to sit up straight. She says they kept one water plant spinning with 3 men, and a backhoe, and a woman named Teresa, who knows how to talk to a pump like it's a stubborn horse. If they can do it there, we can do it here. I am tired in a way that your bones know before your head does. This is the kind of tired that sits in your chest and makes everything feel heavy. But I am not broken. I am not alone. Neither are you. Breathe through your nose. Count to 5 on the way in and 7 on the way out. I know it sounds like nothing. It is something. It tells your animal brain that the fire is not at the door yet. It opens a small shelf in your head where the next good thought can sit without falling off. A few last small things before I turn this off and save the fuel. If you have a flashlight, store it lens down in a cup so you don't blind yourself when you fumble for it. If you have kids, give them jobs that matter, like counting matches and separating batteries by size. The job is not busy work. It is a way to keep a head from spinning. If you have a whistle, give it to the person in your house who speaks the softest. If they need you, they will need a loud friend. If you see someone lighting a grill inside, do not shame them. Walk over with the smile that says, "We're not enemies," and offer to help move it outside. If a man on your street always plays his music too loud, and tonight he's the one with the generator, hear the bass and let it be a heartbeat that reminds you, we are still here. We will talk again at the top of the next hour if the generator behaves and the day does not throw something at the roof I can't handle. I am James Tanner. This is 97.4 FM. I am in a small room with a big feeling, and I am sending that feeling out to you, because that is my job, and I love it even now. Tape your windows if it makes you feel strong. Label your jugs and your buckets. Keep your matches dry. Do not go looking for trouble that is faster than you are. If you hear a distant boom that beats in your ribs, drop and cover your eyes and wait until the room stops shaking. If your hands are shaking, hold them together. They will remember what to do. When you can, sleep in shifts. Write your names on a piece of paper and put it on the fridge, even if the fridge is dead. Because there is power in seeing your name in your own handwriting on a day when the world wants to erase you. I will be here in this chair with tape on its arms and a crack in the vinyl that pinches my leg when I shift. I will watch the second hand on this stubborn watch creep past the 12, and then I will flip this switch, and I will talk again. Until then, keep the small lights. Keep the old tricks. Keep your voice low when you don't need it loud, and loud when someone needs to hear you. If this is the start of a long season, then we measure it by mornings. We have one coming. It may look strange. It may come through a light the color of sour milk. But it will be a morning, and we will count it, and the next, until the count itself becomes a kind of shelter. It's 12:02 a.m. now. The second hand on this old watch crawled its way over, and I flicked the switch back on. The generator grumbled like a tired dog, but it caught, and here I am again. The sky outside hasn't changed since I last spoke. It's still the wrong color, still thick, still carrying that smell of brine and burned wire. I keep waiting for a star to punch through, but nothing's brighter than the haze. It's like the heavens are holding their breath, and we're all down here waiting to see if they let it out or choke on it. The streets are emptier than they should be, but you can feel the weight of people hiding inside houses, peeking through blinds, trying not to be the first to move. Some of the buildings still glow a little, not from power, but from candles and oil lamps. I walked past 1 block an hour ago on my way back from checking the alley fuel cans, and the shadows moved in rhythm like an old campfire story. I heard voices, soft, nervous, telling each other it's fine. It's just one rock. It's just one wave. It's just the grid throwing a fit. You can hear the lies people tell each other when the walls are thin and the dark is thick. I wanted to knock and say don't waste your batteries on lies, but then I thought maybe the lies are helping for now. Sometimes you need them until the truth is ready to sit in the room. I've been picking up fragments on the shortwave, stray bits that ride the air when the conditions are right. A shaky voice from somewhere south of Pittsburgh, repeating that the Monongahela has swallowed half its banks. Another from Dayton saying the hospitals are begging for blood, but their fridges are just warm boxes now. A man in Kentucky reading from a notebook about how to build a rocket stove from bricks, his voice cracking on every third word. These aren't coordinated messages. They're desperate breaths in the static, and every one of them tells me this isn't just Columbus. It's not just the coast. It's wider, much wider, maybe everywhere. There's talk, half whisper, half theory, that the first blast wasn't the worst of it, that it knocked loose a cluster of fragments trailing behind. If that's true, we're living in the pause between hits. My friend Ken said to watch the northern sky, because that's where the light will streak in from if the smaller ones follow the path. He said, if we're lucky, they'll burn up before they touch us. If we're not, they'll come down scattered, like nails dropped from a shaking hand, and every city under the line will get its own scar. I don't know if he's right, but the idea sticks to me, and I keep catching myself staring at the ceiling like I'll see the next one come through plaster. Food is already turning into a question. The groceries were stripped bare by sundown. The little shops, too. I watched a man trade 2 gallons of water for a single can of beans because he had kids in his arms and no patience left. There's no trucks coming tonight. Maybe not for weeks. What you've got in your cupboard is what you've got, and what your neighbor has might save you if you can stop thinking of your neighbor as your rival. If you're listening to me now, don't waste what's perishable first out of habit. Keep it cold as long as the air stays cool, but ration it. Stretch it. Eat smart. The canned stuff is your gold now. Learn to like rice if you've got it. Learn to make soup out of scraps. The old ways will carry us further than the shiny packaging ever could. I'm I'm not going to tell you it's going to get better tomorrow. I can't. But I'll tell you this. I hear you breathing out there, in the static, in the pauses, in the way this city hums, even when the machines stop. We're not gone. We're not finished. Not yet. And as long as this generator has a drop left, as long as my watch ticks, I'll keep talking so you know you're not the last voice in the dark. It's 12:47 a.m. now, and the hum of this generator is the only thing keeping me anchored to the moment. It shakes the floorboards in a steady rhythm, and each vibration feels like proof that I'm still tethered to something human. Outside, the night hasn't shifted. The clouds are still pressed low, swollen with grit and moisture, refusing to let the stars break through. The air has that strange charge to it, like right before lightning strikes, except the lightning never comes. Just that endless pressure, that static prickle crawling up the back of your neck. I walked out onto the fire escape about half an hour ago. The streets below were still. No engines, no neon buzzing, no traffic lights cycling through red and green. Just pale halos of candlelight leaking from apartment windows, spilling into the dust-filled air. A dog barked in the distance, sharp, frantic, and then it cut off. That silence after it ended was worse than the barking itself, because silence out here feels like it's waiting for something. You can't help but hold your breath with it. I saw a group of people earlier, heading east down Broad Street. They had backpacks and rolling suitcases, the kind you'd normally see at the airport. The wheels snagged on cracks in the pavement, and the sound echoed down the block like stones dragged across cement. They didn't look at anyone, just kept moving east, like if they walked far enough, they'd undo what happened this morning. I wanted to shout after them, tell them the coast is worse, that heading east means walking straight into the scar, but my throat locked. Maybe they wouldn't have listened anyway. People cling to the idea of going home, even when home is ash. Ken got another shortwave ping before his rig cut off again. This one came from somewhere near Philadelphia. The man on the other end sounded like he was shouting into a tin can, his voice bouncing through distortion, but I caught enough to know. He said the Schuylkill overflowed its banks and poured into the city's veins. He said the Navy Yard was burning, and the ships tied there went up like they were made of paper. And he said the air smelled like copper wire left too long in the sun. Then the line died, replaced by static that seemed thicker than the air itself. Hospitals here are already strained. Riverside's parking lot filled up fast, and without power to run the elevators, they started moving stretchers down stairwells by flashlight. I heard someone say the ER ran out of blood bags before noon. They were trying to keep what they had cold by stacking them in ice pulled from shattered vending machines. A nurse with a headlamp said she'd never seen so many head injuries in one day. People running into each other on dark staircases. People crashing on dead streets when traffic lights went blind. Kids falling on glass that used to be windows. There's no trauma center big enough for what this day has turned into. If you're out there and listening, here's what matters tonight. Protect your water. Every gallon you set aside now is worth more than what you think is gold. Boil it if you can. Strain it if you can't. Dust and grit don't care what you believe. They'll sit heavy in your stomach and remind you tomorrow. Stick to one room if you can. Keep it warm with bodies and blankets. Conserve the little heat the night allows. And remember to breathe slow. Fear makes you gulp air, and air doesn't fill an empty stomach or clean a cut. I keep coming back to that flash at 10:03 a.m., the way the horizon glowed and the air bent around it. That was the moment the old world cracked. Everything since has been aftershock. And if Ken is right about fragments, then we're not past the worst yet. The sky still has teeth, and it's grinding them slowly, waiting for the next bite. You're not alone tonight. Not in Columbus, not in Ohio, not anywhere this rock cast its shadow. I'll stay here as long as fuel and breath allow. This is James Tanner on 97.4 FM. Hold steady. Count the minutes if you have to. Tomorrow may look worse, but it will still be tomorrow, and that's something worth reaching for. It's 1:36 a.m., and the quiet feels heavier now, like the night itself has gotten tired of pretending. The generator is still running, though it stumbles now and then, a cough that makes me flinch every time, because I know the fuel isn't endless. I keep checking the cans in the alley, as if staring at them will make the diesel multiply, but the truth is, there's only so much, and every hour I burn through it brings me closer to silence I won't be able to break. The city outside looks like it's been drained of color. The dust in the air catches the faint glow from candles and lanterns, and it paints everything in dull gray, like the world turned to old photographs. A few blocks away, I saw smoke rising. Thin, steady, not the wild kind from a fresh fire, but the slow, smoldering type that comes when people light what they shouldn't to stay warm. The air carries it here, mixed with the tang of salt, and it stings the back of the throat. Every breath tastes like the ocean now, even though we're miles inland. I tried to tune through the bands a little while ago, hoping to catch something solid. Most of it is static, thick and restless, but I did hear a woman's voice out of Cleveland. She was reading off names, one after another, pausing between each as if waiting for someone to answer. The names didn't mean anything to me, but the way she said them did. Steady, unbroken, like she believed each one might still be listening. Then her signal faded, and the static swallowed her whole. It made me think maybe that's what I'm doing here too, reading names into the dark, hoping they land somewhere. Supplies are going fast. The corner store on West Broad had its front glass shattered by nightfall, and what wasn't looted was trampled. Someone spray-painted "No Delivery" across the brick wall, like a joke that wasn't really a joke. The bigger supermarkets were stripped bare before sunset. People grabbed things they didn't even need just to hold something, anything, that felt like control. A woman I know from the studio said she saw a man trade his winter coat for a single gallon of bottled water. He walked away shivering but smiling, clutching that jug like treasure. Hospitals here are still holding on, but just barely. They've got generators of their own, but fuel is fuel, and it doesn't last forever. Someone told me Grant Medical had to move patients down to the basement because they couldn't keep the upper floors warm. The elevators don't work, so nurses are carrying stretchers down the stairs, one step at a time, flashlights strapped to their heads. There's no ambulance sirens anymore, just private cars rushing through the dark, horns blaring to clear intersections where the lights are dead. If you're listening, know this. Don't wait for someone else to fix it. Fill what you can with water tonight. Every pot, every jug, every bucket. Seal food tight against dust. Share with your neighbors if you can, because none of us are getting through this alone. Old tricks matter now. Blankets over doors, candles behind foil, towels stuffed into cracks where the cold sneaks in. It doesn't sound like much, but it makes the difference between shivering through the night and waking with enough strength to face the morning. Ken's voice crackled through again on the shortwave before dropping out. He said fragments are still being tracked, that some may skim the atmosphere in the next day or two. If that happens, we'll see streaks of fire in the sky, and if they hold together, they'll land. Maybe not here, maybe not now, but somewhere, the way he said it, calm, resigned, made me think he knows more than he's telling. I don't know if he's trying to keep me steady, or if he just doesn't want to say out loud what he really fears. I can't shake the image of those people I saw walking east earlier, their bags dragging behind them. I wonder if they're still walking now, or if they've stopped to rest in some darkened lot. I wonder if they'll ever see the ocean again, and if the ocean they find will even resemble the one they remember. This is James Tanner on 97.4 FM. I'll keep this line open as long as the fuel and the signal allow. Don't give in to the silence. Don't let the dark convince you that you're alone. We're still here. We're still breathing. And as long as I can talk, I'll keep reminding you of that. It's 2:22 a.m., and I can feel the weight of this day pressing down harder than the roof above me. The generator stumbles every so often, and when it does, the lights flicker in a way that makes my stomach knot. Every time the room dips into that half-second of darkness, I think, this is it. This is when it all goes quiet. But then it roars back to life, coughing out that ragged breath like a fighter who refuses to fall. I don't know if I admire it or if I pity it, but I do know that as long as it keeps breathing, so do I. The streets are starting to look less like a city and more like a graveyard of machines. Cars left where they died, some still with doors open, some with trunks hanging wide as if their owners thought they'd have time to come back. A delivery truck sat at the corner of Town and Gift, its cab empty, but the back pried open. People must have gotten to it earlier, because all that's left inside are torn boxes and spilled bags of flour, white dust trailing out onto the street like footprints that go nowhere. It reminded me of the first snow, except there was no sound of kids, no laughter, just silence. I walked past a gas station on my way back here before midnight. The pumps were dark, the sign with prices unlit, but a crowd had gathered anyway. Some were banging on the doors, others had jugs and hoses, trying to siphon what they could from the underground tanks. It doesn't matter that those pumps can't run without power. Desperation doesn't care about physics. A man in a work shirt shouted that he knew how to open the lids, but someone else pulled him away before he could try. I don't know if they saved him or just delayed the fight. People are starting to realize fuel is blood now, and blood runs out. Ken's last message before his rig cut again has been looping in my head. He said the ocean hit changed more than we think, that the blast threw so much vapor and grit into the air it might bend the climate for months, maybe years. He said the sunlight we used to know won't come through the same, that crops we rely on may fail if the sky keeps wearing this gray coat. He said we might not just be living through a disaster, we might be stepping into a season of them. I didn't want to believe him, but tonight, breathing this heavy salt air, I can almost taste the truth of it. I've been hearing more voices on the shortwave, not many, but enough. Someone in Indiana said their town pulled together and turned the high school gym into a shelter. They've got wood stoves in the middle of the floor, smoke drifting up through vents they carved out of windows. They're rationing food, handing out small pieces of bread, sharing what they can. A man in Michigan kept repeating the same warning. Don't trust every voice on the airwaves. He said some broadcasts are bait, traps set to draw survivors into places where there's no help at all. I don't know if that's paranoia or truth, but I've learned not to dismiss either. If you're listening, here's what I know matters tonight. Find people you can count on, even just one. Write down what you have. Don't just keep it in your head. Paper lasts longer than memory when fear is chewing at you. Stay away from low ground if you're near rivers. The waves come late, sometimes hours after the first strike, and they don't care if you've convinced yourself it's safe. And keep your fire small, because smoke tells stories to anyone watching. I'm not sure what the morning will look like. I can't promise the sun will come through, or that the world will resemble what it was. But morning is still morning, and that's something. I'll stay on until the generator gives out or my voice does. This is James Tanner on 97.4 FM, holding the line for anyone still out there, anyone still listening. Stay steady, stay alive. The night is long, but it isn't endless. It's 3:15 a.m. now, and the city has settled into a kind of slow, watchful breath. The generator is humming its low song, and the studio smells like coffee gone flat and the metal tang of old wires, which has become the scent of doing what we can while the world rearranges itself outside. I spent the last hour making a list of names and addresses people called or sent me in texts that never fully went through. The tiny messages that hang half-sent like unfinished prayers. And I taped that list to the console so if the boards die and the light goes out, I can still find faces to say when I speak into empty air. People keep telling me the worst part is the not knowing, and they're right in the way panic is right when it runs the streets and breaks into shops. But there's another part that eats steady and soft, the small, stupid routines we lose. No more coffee at the corner, where the barista used to nod like a lighthouse. No more bus drivers who say the same joke every Tuesday. Those things add up to a life, and when they're gone, it feels like a theft in slow motion. So I write them down and say them into the mic because names are anchors for us all. The night has given us time to notice things that would have been background noise before. There's a pattern to the lights in neighborhoods now. People who had a plan have gone quiet, and the ones who didn't are still lighting candles out of habit. In one block, a man sits at his window, with a flashlight on the porch and a dog at his feet. The dog's older and moves like it remembers younger days, but every time a truck door slams somewhere, the dog lifts its head and does a little growl that is mostly caution. In another building, a woman with a sharp laugh is handing out pieces of dry bread and telling stories about the river when she was a kid. And the children who sit cross-legged in front of her listen, like it's the only story that matters. These small acts of keeping tell me the city isn't just a pile of structures. It is stubborn, and stubbornness keeps us breathing. I checked the transmitter, tightened a loose bolt, wiped dust from the antenna connection with a rag that smells like old engine oil, because clean rags are a luxury right now. You learn to be a mechanic of the small things. A coax line is one stubborn truth. If it's loose, you lose the world. People ask if I'm scared, and the honest answer is yes, of course. Scared sits in my throat like a stone. But fear is different here. It sharpens rather than floods. It makes me check the fuel cans twice and watch the alley for movement. It makes me listen more closely to the shortwave for voices that might be emergency responders, might be friends, might be strangers. One voice I caught talked about a dam west of the city taking on water weirdly, like it was being moved from below rather than fed from above. That's the kind of thing that makes you stop and think about rivers like living things, and how an impact that hits water can start a whole choreography of motion none of us did the steps for. If you live near any dam or bridge, put your listening ear to the ground and your thinking cap on. Movement of water is sly and arrives late. Don't wait for a boom to tell you a river is angry. We talked earlier about what to do with water and food. Let me add a few more practical things that matter when the nights stretch long and the grid is a story you used to tell. If you have a cooler and ice, use it smart. Keep the most perishable items in one small cooler and only open it when needed. Wrap the cooler in blankets outside to keep the cold longer. The insulation trick works both ways. Use the back of the fridge first because it gets coldest, and when the fridge warms, move the rest into coolers. If you can make a solar oven out of foil and cardboard, do it. It's slow, but slow is safer right now. Learn to improvise a stove from a coffee can and sawdust or charcoal. A small flame in a metal enclosure is worth a lot for cooking and for drying wet clothing. If you have a bike, convert it into a hand-crank generator with a motor and some wire. If someone in your neighborhood knows basic wiring, people with little skills are now big treasures. I heard from a man in Hilliard who built a pedal charger and kept his phone alive for days, using it only to call names and coordinates and to send a single photo to his sister so she would know he was okay. That one picture was a thin rope between two people, and it mattered more than you can measure. There have been ugly things, too. People who say the world brings out the worst, and they're right in some corners. There were fights over bottled water in a pharmacy 2 blocks from here. 2 men beat each other with batons and then cried because they were exhausted and ashamed. Looting happens when you feel abandoned, and I can't pretend it's simple or one shape. Sometimes people take to keep their family alive. Sometimes they take because the rush of it makes them forget. If someone is at your door and they look desperate, you have a choice. You can say no and risk being cruel, or you can find a way to give something smaller than what they ask, so nobody leaves empty-handed. Little kindnesses diffuse big anger. Put out a bowl of hot water and let them wash their face. Give them a blanket even if it leaves you cold. Your small generosity might stop a fight later down the street. On the theory side, Ken, who keeps slipping in and out of range like a cautious ghost, sent me a short note over the rig this morning about secondary atmospheric effects. He used words like particulates and albedo and then made a joke about sounding like a scientist, which he is, pretending not to be. The long and short of it is this. The cloud the impact made will scatter sunlight and change how warm the ground gets. That can cool nights and warm days in weird ways and alter wind patterns. It will also help dust to stay in the air longer. This is not a weather problem for one season. It could last months. That means planting seasons may shift, and we may need to plan for food that stores well instead of food that depends on one growing window. If you have seeds, label them and keep them in a dry place. Legacy garden seeds are worth more than what they cost when supply lines are messed up. If you have livestock, move them to the highest, driest ground you can. Water them and feed them first if you can. Animals that survive will keep you fed in lean months. I want to talk about the hospital again because it matters, and because people there are doing work that is almost impossible to honor enough. I spoke with a volunteer nurse over the shortwave who said they've turned the church basement into a triage center and are doing what they can with the tools they have. They told me about an old woman named Maria who came in with a broken hip and a smile that hasn't left her, even as they wrapped her in blankets and put a hot pack at her feet. Maria says she's seen worse winters and worse floods, and she keeps saying it like a spell to steady the young ones around her, who have never had to be the strong one. The nurse said they try to keep windows slightly cracked for air because the dust sits heavy, and people with lung trouble need anything that moves the air a little. If you can, get your home into a place that breathes while keeping the grit out. A cracked window near the ceiling that lets warm air escape and cool air move through without blowing grit straight into your face. Simple tricks matter. We are starting to see small communities form with surprising speed. A church near the river is organizing a ration line and teaching people how to boil water in a way that uses less fuel. A block of neighbors on Maple are operating an informal barter ring. One family brings canned vegetables, another brings batteries, another brings a battery-powered radio that everyone can use in turns. They rotate a person on the porch to listen for updates in the day so families can sleep. These pockets of organization are like tinder for hope. They don't need to be perfect. No small neighborhood makes perfect decisions. But they are proof the city remembers how to be human. If you can start or join something like that, do. Lists, shifts, and simple rules keep panic from turning neighbors into strangers. There are rumors of help coming from other places. Convoys, rescue teams, people with little flags and bigger hearts. I've heard radio traffic about a military convoy reaching a staging point up north with blankets and MRES and people who know how to organize a line. It's easy to be skeptical of rumor. We've had promises go dark before, but hear me when I say this. Do not give up on asking for help. Send your coordinates on whatever channel still moves. Leave your name where someone can find it. Tape a note on your door with the time and the number of people inside. If a rescue does sweep through your area, those little marks will help them choose where to stop. You might be in luck. You might be waiting a long time. But the act of asking is itself an act of survival because it keeps the possibility of rescue alive in the world. I think about the children a lot. They understand less about long-term planning and more about immediate comfort. They need stories that make sense in small pieces. Tonight you survive, tomorrow you try again. Tell them what you're doing in small sentences, like how you cover a scrape. Simple steps, simple reasons. A child who knows the plan sleeps better than one who watches adults wander in the dark. Give the small tasks to the young ones, folding blankets, sorting a pile of canned goods by size, because the tasks give them a foothold, and hold them when you can. Physical touch steadies everything that feels unsteady. There's talk, always a low layer of talk, about moving inland, about heading for hills and higher ground where the sea's tricks can't get you. If you try that, pick routes that avoid the major arteries because those are clogged with trucks and abandoned cars and angry people. The old farm roads and county lanes may be slower, but they are clearer and easier to move silently on. Bring what you can carry and leave what you can't. A long walk with fewer things is better than a short drive that ends with you stranded. And if you have elders who can't travel, do not leave them. Communities make detours for their elders. They cut paths wider and build lifts out of boards and rope. A good team sacrifices for no one because they have to. They sacrifice because it's the right thing. Don't let logistics make you forget mercy. I can feel myself getting long-winded, and maybe I'm just stalling because the generator has a cough and I keep leaning my ear to it, like it will tell me its secrets. The truth is, I don't have all the answers. I have hands that know how to tighten a bolt, and a voice that knows how to read names into the night. I have a stubbornness that says, I will not stop, because stopping means more than one person in a world that still matters. If you are out there and you are tired, close your eyes for 5 minutes and breathe like you mean it. Count to 7 on the inhale and 9 on the exhale if you can. It won't fix the power grid, but it steadies a heart, and that matters. I'll check the towers again at the top of the hour. I'll try to pick up anything that sounds like help or someone who needs help. I will tell the names I know and the small maps I carry in my head. Keep your doors secured in a way that still allows air to move, and keep your windows taped if you can. Don't light open flames near anything that can burn the cheap way a house can vanish when curtains catch. And if you hear someone outside who sounds like they are lost and not violent, Meet them at the stoop and ask their name. If they give it, they're human. If they hesitate or mimic, trust the sense that asks more questions. A voice that stumbles over a question is usually a voice that still houses a person you can help. This is James Tanner on 97.4 FM. The night hasn't surrendered, and neither have we. Keep the small lights. Keep your lists. Keep line of sight with your neighbors. We'll do what we can here, 1 hour at a time, one small kindness at a time, until the morning decides what it wants to be.